Hello to you all. This is Full Moon Circle, July 10th, 2025. We are into some vibes here. And these vibes, um, I feel like I can't keep anything in my head right now. Because where I am is so hot right now. God. So I'm in Konya, Turkey. I'm in Anatolia. These incredible ancestral lands. The layers of things here is mind-boggling, and I've been in these like deep meditations with the land and putting honestly her story back together. And what I'm most interested in is drawing out the practices themselves. So it's not just like, oh well, what do they believe, and like what were the themes? Like we need that too, but I am tugging on these threads to pull them all the way into the present moment, that we can start coming into the dreaming world building around the intersection of our spirituality and society in our new world. And so today I went to the first city. And I'll give a little like asterisk or parentheses, like the first city we know of is called Çatalhöyük. It's just about a 45-minute drive from the modern day city of Konya. Konya itself is a deeply spiritual place. It's the birthplace of Shams Tabriz and his very well-known student, Jalaluddin Rumi. And I also went to Rumi's shrine today. So I'm kind of like, I'm flying so high. And it's also like 100 degrees here Fahrenheit, which is like, I don't know, 42 or 40 or 42 or something Celsius. So it's a little bit, and pulling all these strings. And this full moon, is Guru Purnima in the South Asian system. So I felt like, the way I connected today in the still daytime to the Guru principle. Well, there's Rumi and his devotion to his Guru Sham, and there's this Neolithic city. It's like 8 or 9,000 people that live there at the time. This is 9,000 years ago, and they lived in this beautiful egalitarian society. They didn't have social strata, and the ways that they shared, the ways that they lived together, and archaeologists of today will filter things through the mindset of today and the cultural systems of today. And so, one of the things I was thinking about was like, I bet they didn't have marriage. I bet they just had partnerships. And I bet they had multiple partnerships. Like that's where my imagination went, because I didn't see any placards about that anywhere in the visitor center, because you won't. um, and so, there's even stories of the first archaeological discoveries of these sites, and some of those, men being completely, ashamed of these images of the goddess and her voluptuousness or her body parts, and things like this. And, I was just like, okay, note to self, decolonization at every step when we're putting our histories and herstories back together. So Çatalhöyük was a really phenomenal experience. The site itself, the energy on the site, what the spirits of the land had to say, life was very simple. It was extremely simplified. The beliefs were simplified, the practices were simplified. And so connecting to these images and essences of the great goddess in her forms, it's from these early Neolithic settlements in this part of the world. Animals get domesticated, plants get domesticated, in a sense, cultivation. And then those people are going to go and they're going to take those sheep, and those dogs and those bulls and their wheat, and they're going to go out into Europe. and they're going to create all sorts of other settlements that we know, but they're also going to take the spirituality with them. So my Guru Purnima this year is on some like multiplicity, deep connectivity, the sentiment of Guru Purnima. Purnima means the full moon of the Guru, that this full moon is rich and alive with the essence of lineage. And one of the things that I learned at Çatalhöyük today, I learned this before, but it was really on display there in the visitor center, what they would do with their ancestors when people passed. They would have them out for almost like a Tibetan style sky burial. So the vultures would pick off all the meat and the sun would dry the bones. And then they would collect the bones of their loved one and they would bury them in the floorboards, like underneath. And some houses had like 60 ancestor bones under the house, And when it was time, because this was natural material structures, when it was time to build a new structure or to move house, they took all the ancestors with them and relocated them to the new location. And if you think of like the sentiment of lineage and knowing where the bones of your ancestors rest. I started 3 years ago flipping my life upside down with that impetus. That was the call-in. I need to visit the places where the bones of my ancestors rest. I went to a lot of places that are technically and not technically, but with that sentiment of literally connecting to the bones of the ancestors. Well, these ancient ancestors here in Çatalhöyük and many of these other places in this whole land, that's what they did. They literally rested with the bones of the ancestors. That is lineage. And that is what is meant by Guru Purnima. Yes, we can also get into the technicalities of guru, light, dark, one who leads you from darkness into light. But I got to tell you, in an earlier time, we didn't have all this complex mental, all the thoughts that we think ourselves into knots, all this. We did not have these identity constructs that confuse and confound us. No, we just didn't have this level of confusion. And so light and dark wasn't a confusion either. If your practices are to go into caves or underground cities for extended periods of time and do dream meditation and healing practices, you're not afraid of the dark. Also, or the darkness or shadow, right? If your light in those underground spaces is oil lamp, as I learned in Cappadocia 2 days ago. Linseed oil, right? Ground and pressed for the oil to come out. But it's just a little light flicker. No, you're not going to relate with darkness with this grand sense of fear. Literally, you're going to have excellent night vision on top of all of that. Your perception, your ability to see. Like I was reading a thing about a culture somewhere. I'm forgetting exactly where. Like I said, it's a little brain fried today. And what they were getting at was how these people adapted through generations to see underwater. They have a keen visual capacity underwater, and they are divers, and collectors of things from the deep, like this. So Gu and Ru, that relationship that Rumi had with Shams Itibris, like when you read Rumi poetry, really those are all songs, when you experience those words, however you're experiencing them, he absolutely cries for the master. He weeps, for the master. He sacrifices for the master. He celebrates for the master. He longs for the master like he would long for a lover. He longs for the master like he would long for the divine itself. And all those sentiments, those words, those feelings. I think it's one of the most beautiful expressions that we know of the guru disciple experience. Now, I just happened to have gone to the shrine today, and I was like, okay, I can pick up a very, very small book. Yeah, here's one. This is Rumi. I died 100 times, and I learned this. Your fragrance came, and I was made alive. I gave my life 100 times and fell. I heard your call, and I was born again. I placed a net to catch the falcon love. Deep in my heart, he seized my heart and went. You would think, hearing those words, oh, he's talking about some woman, some lover, this, that, this, that. No, he's talking about Shams. I heard your call and I was born again. And then he seized my heart and then he left. Oh, it's so beautiful. That's the sentiment. So this is how I have connected to my Guru Purnima this time. Like this. And what we're getting at here is a longing to become the Guru. A longing to embody the Guru principle. So feel free to connect to the energies and the sentiments of Guru Purnima in a way that is meaningful to you. We could be talking about Samaya, Sanskrit word for lineage. We could be talking about our ancestor teachers. When we come more into the autumn in the South Asian context, we come into the season of the ancestor. So there's more like explicit ancestor vibe in August, September, October. But like I was saying about Çatalhöyük, there is a connection there. So that's the invitation. It's Guru Purnima, is the moon of this. And I had looked up the exact timing. So it peaks July 10th, 1:36 p.m. Pacific time. So if that's 3:30, like 9:36 kind of London time, BST. To put that into perspective, why I want to be explicit about this is because this moon in particular, often at the full moon, it's a nice time for endings, uh, and even a like new beginnings energy can come at the full moon because it's this like cyclic completion. Not this one though. Yeah, this one is like it's more about purification. This isn't an ideal moon for ending. So forget whatever I was just saying about new beginnings. Sometimes a full moon can even have an ending and then a new beginning vibe. This full moon in particular is not even a good one for endings. So like let's get into some of that symbology of why that may be the way that it is. The nakshatra is Purva Ashada, and it's this is a place for purification and a little bit of like triumph. So you got to stay with the trials. Um, it's more like reflection time. Our next new moon is going to be a nice moon. That's on the 24th, I think. It's going to be a nice moon for new beginnings. There's going to be some like nice fresh energy around there, but I don't know if you have been observing what is happening in the world right now. Ay, ay, ay. You know, the heat, the extreme presentation in climate. You got places in Europe. I saw Sevilla was 53 Fahrenheit. Sorry. 53 Celsius the other day. Okay, I had to look it up. It was 130. You know, that's when like grid systems start breaking, you know, electric and like you pavement starts melting, you know, plastic garbage cans melt. It's that is very, very, very hot. We also know that there's places in the world that are experiencing extreme wet. If you remember a couple moon circles ago, we said, ooh, there's this indication for pretty heavy monsoon wet weather pattern in other places. So see, we're back in these extremes. We know we have wildfires as well. Now, I'm hanging out in Turkey and Greece, you know, at the moment. And so there's wildfires in both of these places, very destructive ones. There's wildfires in Canada. These are just the ones that are in the tip of my tongue. And so we are in a real climate extreme moment, a continued fractious time in the United States. It's building. You can feel the tension. We're also peak yang energy of summer. So this message is very important. What we're doing in this moon is a bit of analysis, a bit of focus, so that you reaffirm your deeper convictions. And of course, wherever sidereal Sagittarius is in your chart, is the themes that will be alight during this moon. I know for me, it's a lot about transformation. So we give thanks for wisdom. And the deity of this moon is Appa, the goddess of the cosmic waters. You know, so bathe yourself, right? Like cleanse yourself. let the waters wash over you. You know, that you can. The symbol, there's a few symbols that include the elephant's tusk, the winnowing basket, or the fan. We're talking about the winnowing basket. We're talking about separating the hull from the seed, right? So we're distilling right now. We got a couple other aspects at this moon. Saturn and Neptune playing their game in Pisces. Neptune just went retrograde. It really does depend on your chart how that's going to affect you. We can say how that's going to affect the collective. And then, of course, this interaction that Neptune is having, this is an extended interaction that Neptune's having with Saturn. Saturn is also about to go retrograde, and that's going to be a flavor change as well. So Saturn, taskmaster planet, is going to say, hey, here's all the things I want you to go back over already within the first 10 degrees of Pisces, sidereal Pisces. So if you have any planets in there, any aspect, anything like that, yes, Saturn is like, let's revisit this for the first time. Don't worry, we're going to revisit it 3 times while I'm hanging out here in Pisces. Like, yay! You know? There's an energizing and galvanizing power in this moon. You have to be engaging and directing it to access it. The ruling planet of this nakshatra is Venus, and meaning the whatever pada or section that this moon is in, which is 24 degrees 37 minutes. That pada, that's probably the last pada, is ruled by Venus. So then we also will look, where's Venus positioned for you in your chart, right? And Venus has their own story as well. Like Venus is in, I think, sidereal Taurus. Let me see. Yeah, Venus is at 12 degrees, 40 minutes sidereal Taurus right now. Venus is a pretty fast-moving planet. They finished their retrograde cycle when they were in Pisces, and so pretty soon, next month, Venus is going to be joining a little soiree over in Gemini. I think the sun will have pushed on to Cancer, but there's going to be a Venus Jupiter conjunction. And so that's very artistic, that's very philosophical, it's very creative, but like two kind of Dharma approaches, you know. So that should be an interesting thing. We'll be talking more about that. I mean, I love everything with Venus, you know what I mean? I'm like, yay, Venus is doing something. The other thing that's happening with this moon, because the sun is in with Jupiter over there in sidereal Gemini, they're in different nakshatras, but the sun is at 24 minutes and Jupiter's at 12 minutes. Sorry, degrees. 24 degrees, and then Jupiter's at 12 degrees, 50 minutes. So they're in the same sign. They're not in the same nakshatra. So if we were going to get fractal, there's some differences. However, Jupiter's with sun, and they're opposing, Jupiter is opposing the moon with that. And so Jupiter's in the mix, stirring the pot in terms of like, I want to help you grow. You're going to have to clean house. Like Jupiter can't bust through what you have to sort out. And guess who is the favorite person to sort shit out? Saturn, who's in the mix with creative Neptune. You know, so like for me, that kind of sounds like fun, but I like hard work. Like I don't want a free ride. Like I like working for it. So you go have to do work though. Whatever happens here. Like, that's the thing. So purification through conviction. That. Let's read a little bit about Purvashada. Saturn goes stationary July 12th. And Saturn's steady. Saturn is a very positive influence should you adapt to the qualities of Saturn. Hard work, service, centering the lower classes, the downtrodden, you know, sacrifice. That's, Saturn loves that stuff. Austerity, discipline. I don't know. Sometimes we can be disciplined in summer, and sometimes we're like, So the opportunity is to clear out what no longer supports your integrity. Like, where have you been compromising your integrity? What is broken? What is outdated? What's a limiting belief? I had a strong conversation today with someone who's having a birth experience that I am almost sure will end up with a cesarean birth. How do we write a positive story? Like, how do we reclaim power within that sense of powerlessness? You know, like you are the author of your story. You might want to analyze how you're telling it that's limiting you, because that will help you unlock the Jupiterian expansive energy, applying that Saturn's, you know, analysis. Like, gosh, I've outgrown this. Why do I still try to fit myself into this box? Why do I play small? Why do I compromise my integrity for others? Like, why do I do that? You know when you catch yourself, you're like, why did I just act that way? why did I not respond? Or why did I respond in the way that I did respond? This is a very exciting, galvanizing moon. Remember, Mars Ketu are still doing their very fiery dance. And I will say, before we get into a little bit more about Purva Ashada, this is like maybe this is the first time I'll say it, as a heads up, warning light. July 15 to 22. Very spicy. No fighting. Calm. Not stubborn. Calm. Cool. Peacekeeping. It feels spicy. The anxiety's up. Don't make the decision if you don't have to. Don't make the call. Put it off like that. Do not get into fights. Do not get into road rage. We may see things on the global sphere that continue to just honestly disgust. It's all just really grotesque to me. Okay, we'll come back around to that perhaps, but let me tell you a little bit more about Purva Ashada. Let's see if we can continue to distill from the vibes. Yeah, integrity and freedom. Okay. Ruled by Venus, asterism ruled by Venus, Apas the water goddess. Primary motivation is moksha. Basic characteristic of Purva Ashada is general spiritual environment in which the soul dwells. Like an elephant unconcerned with the surrounding commotion and activity, the soul is attuned to the harmonious interrelationship of all things in creation. On a superficial level, inertia prevails, but under appropriate conditions, the elephant can be aroused to courageous deeds. The tusk is one of the symbols. It's more valuable than any other part of the elephant's body to humans. It's sort of an externalization of the inner possibilities of the animal. When the tusk is severed, it has the power to grow back again. Under Purva Ashada, many unknown and unsuspected possibilities of the person come to light. Under its impulse, the individual may receive flashes of intuition and valuable insight into the working of divine law. One gets much wisdom under it. The quality of wisdom that grows under the influence of Purva Ashada is of great practical importance. Like water, it sustains life as well as cleanses its impurities. The Vedic sages worship the water goddess as one who destroys all poisons, wards off jealousy and disease, and bestows eternal creative energy. These are the vitalizing impulses flowing through this asterism. The sun and moon provide the polarized energy impulses, which in turn protect water to support and nourish every kind of manifestation. What Purva Ashada produces for an individual goes a long way in sustaining, nourishing, and making them creative. Sorry. Multitask. Okay. Okay. Much sensitivity is developed. Okay. Great significance is attached to water and water deities in every religion. Okay, I'm going to skip a little. Purva Ashada, by cleansing the impurities of ignorance collected during previous incarnations, opens out the soul to the universalization of consciousness and thereby to universal sympathy. This energy of water or sattva is a reflection of divine unity. Its activation brings forth the inmost and divine quality latent in human, symbolized by the elephant tusk. When the individual becomes aware of their inherent qualities, the uniqueness with which they are born, there's often a sense of pride. Such a psychological weakness arises if the unity between the individual and the universal life force is overlooked. This situation may arise due to the influence of Venus, the lord of this asteroid, With the change in the basic nature of human, they become more spiritual and much power begins to pour through them. Their creativity is augmented to a great extent. Venus gives sensitivity and an inclination towards personal pleasures. This influence accentuates the ego of the individual. They begin to think that the creativity resulting from the divine energy is theirs and does not come from another source. This ignorance veils the supreme force energizing them. The psychological transformation possible at this stage is indicated by the forces of Sagittarius as beauty, harmony, and noble aspiration. Okay. The nature of the purification and transformation under this asterism is indicated by the planets ruling its quarters. The first quarter, the sun, under who the impact the individual begins to experience the omnipresence and omnipotence of the universal life. Love that. This experience draws one nearer to the center, as a result of which psychological transformation begins to take place. The second quarter is ruled by Mercury, whose main function is to energize the mentation process under the overall radiation of spirituality resulting from Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and the primary flow of the sattvic attribute. Mercury enables one to perceive unity in diversity. Such an understanding of the universality of nature around oneself makes an individual yet more religious oriented. The Venusian energy of the third quarter, okay, is related to sign Libra, implying thereby the satiety of material affluence and the growth of spirituality. At this stage, the individual is not argumentative. They intuitively perceive the universal spirit prevailing everywhere. As the asterism itself is ruled by Venus, this feeling is very pronounced. The inborn attraction of the soul towards the religious life is accentuated under Purvashada. In the fourth quarter under Mars, mild form of fanaticism may be noticed. I wonder if that's a little bit why this moon's influence is like a little bit more agitating, because honestly, Mars' position right now in sidereal Leo with Ketu is gonna just really kind of sass this whole thing. Okay, so in the fourth quarter under Mars, a mild form of fanaticism may be noticed. Whatever the quarter, the psychological change is pronounced. This directs the individual towards universalization of their spirit. In such activities, there's much of sacrament, the outward expression of religious activity, and a strong urge for dedication to the supreme. Devotion to a personal form of God is more attractive at this stage than the philosophy of one universal being existing and manifesting everywhere. I'm skipping over a few things because this is really an epically long chapter, because I want to make a link here to something that I was talking about earlier. And that was my visit to Çatalhöyük. Okay. The people there had such a simple spirituality, not of individuality. They lived in an egalitarian society. There was no social strata. They shared everything. Everything was the abundance for everyone, and everyone thrived. And just like what he was talking about, the author, Bipin Bihari, we're reading from Myths and Symbols of Vedic Astrology, just what he was talking about in terms of the Venusian influence, right? The satiating of material affluence and the growth of spirituality. For the people of Çatalhöyük, the thing went in reverse, okay? We're talking about Neolithic times. We're talking about domestication of animal, domestication of plants, right? We're talking about agrarian society. Kindle just died. And with that shift comes a new relationship with the natural world. And everything's hunky-dory for a lot of thousands of years. But while I was on the site today, one of the things that I learned Why did Çatalhöyük end? Why did the settlement end? Because they had an abundance of things. And the possession of, so even the things including statues, right, as opposed to just paintings on walls, literally an accumulation of things caused fracture within the united community of those who have and those who don't have, those who have more and those who have less. And the community broke into many smaller communities that would then come up in this Neolithic timeline. And so we can really look at this grand human timeline of being in the oneness of it all and not having any issues with that. In Çatalhöyük, they had peace. They weren't free of conflict. They did not have war. They did not take from others, but they traded within other communities throughout this whole Anatolian region. But they did not have war. They did not have the need to go and take, and others did not come and take from them. But it's truly the accumulation of material wealth that inspired the human imagination to shift from that oneness model and move into the individuation, the cultivation of the individual, and all the identities that will come along with that. And what we have today are these really detailed, thank you, gurus. We have these super detailed spiritual practices to lead us back on this involutionary path so that as individuals, we could reclaim the universalism that lives within us. But here's my critical question. What good is any of that if the structure of the society is completely locked into an economic model that's based in a scarcity concept and that's rooted in war and rooted in a narrative of patriarchy and fertility? Is my quest. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole or a foxhole or something. So see, it's all connected, right? If you want to let it be, like however you're connecting to it, I'm just sharing the storytelling of my day, connecting with the gurus of the place where I'm in, and the lineage of the teachings and the bones of the ancestors, and this astrology of today, because even this astrology, particularly this astrology of these moon phases, this fractal aspect of the astrology, I'm gonna have to do the research to really get into, can I find enough connection to make my statements with some measure of certainty, But I know what I've experienced in my meditations and my visions, particularly when I was in the island of Malta, that, yeah, this moon knowledge, this fractal epistemology in the form of astrology, that's also her system. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see just how many things we can stitch and weave together. So my cheeks hurt from laughing. So I don't know if there's much more I need to say about this moon. You need to keep your cool. Mars Ketu conjunction, Saturn getting into the mix. If you feel like insanely pressured to be making decisions about stuff, I bet you could give yourself a little space and grace. You know, help a buddy out along the way. and and do excellent care, for yourself and others. We got to get all the way through July, like all of July, and in August, a little bit of flavor change. Just checking in on a few notes here. I'm not really keeping everything in my head today. Of just what else is coming up. Um, July 16th, the sun is going to shift into Cancer. That'll be that might be really nice. It might just turn a little bit more towards like home, family. Um, Gemini is very fast paced, and Jupiter's moving really fast through Gemini right now. So it's really supercharged over there in Gemini, which probably why it's gonna be really curious when Venus pops in there. But we're just gonna get a little bit more like social, spiritual, creative interests when Sun moves into Cancer. That's gonna be really nice. More concerns with stability and security. Unfortunately, that might not be an influence in the way that we would like it to be in the political sphere, particularly for the United States right now. Ay, ay, ay. Put it on your radar. Mercury goes retrograde July 18 to August 11 in Cancer. So there'll be some Mercury Sun interacting during that as well. And like, we're in Cancer. So again, like mind, moon, Cancer's ruled by moon. So memories can come up. Could be very intuitive time. Um, those buried memories could be pleasant, painful, or neutral. Honestly, even this moon is like, could be pleasant, painful, or neutral. Mars Ketu conjunction could be pleasant, painful, or neutral. It's really Neptune. Yeah, pleasant. Neptune retrograde also pleasant, painful, and neutral. But the exact conjunction with Mars Ketu, it's the whole month, but like July 20, July 21, 22. It's a lot. It's extreme fire energy. Be aware of structural fires. Be aware of wildfires. Be aware of explosive events. Like, I'm going to be at a festival that week. Granted, it's like a conscious sober festival, so like that's closer to the thing, but that doesn't mean the humans, they still are getting really amped up there. So it's like that lets me know, hey, both eyes open, like keep it chill, have fun, but just know that like it could explode. Does that mean that it can also explode with just ambition, creativity, enthusiasm, drive? Yes, yes. Then you can get really galvanized around something. That could be fun. It could be transformational, but just know it can be destructive. It can also be constructive. Um, it could be revolutionary. There's a lot of like references from history. So I say keep on your calendar also July 21 to 24, the balsamic moon phase, the lead up to the new moon, like calm and cool, retreat, purification, lovey, easeful. Like, give yourself that. Let yourself rest on the back end of this heated, galvanizing, catalyzing energy. Give yourself that rest. Coming up later in the month, we get a new moon in Cancer. Venus is going to move into Gemini. And after July 28th, Mars is going to move into Virgo. This fiery conjunction is going to be complete. And we'll move into whatever is the next fun chapter. Like this. A lot of growth on the docket right now. A lot of growth on the docket right now. So I'm going to pause this download here. That feels like enough. And let us know how it lands for you.